Hello, my name is Arden. Thank you for having us here, and thank you so much for the LPR for existing and for reading my work. I wrote this story in a fit of existential dread that has only grown, particularly with what's happening in Australia. However, I have always been a little bit vulnerable to optimism, and yesterday I was reading a good story about a tortoise, a Galapagos tortoise, who has single-handedly helped rebuilding the Galapagos tortoise population by scoring with some ladies. And I have to say, I've never been more excited to read about someone getting lucky. So on that note, I'm going to read just the first few sections of my story, The Expression of the Emotions in Girl and Animals. Dehydration is the second worst thing about surviving a shipwreck. When you wake up alone on a deserted island and your lips are already dry and your skin is already blooming red from the sun, water is the first thing you think about. It is also the first thing you see, a blanket of dark blue dotted with white caps, resting under a clear sky pierced with an unforgiving sun. It laps at the edge of the beach, only yards away from your rapidly drying body, beckoning you with steady waves. But this is not the water you need. When the breeze pushes a fine ocean spray against your cheeks, you taste the poison on your lips. Salt. Dehydration is a cruel game. It motivates you to get up, but it also makes moving forward very difficult. I won the game, but it wasn't pretty. I vomited up everything left in my stomach, the contents of my last meal on the boat. Tuna fish, salad, saltines, some mango, and precious fresh water. I stopped sweating. I staggered over sand and stones and bleached dry branches, twisting my right ankle twice. Black crows, cawing hallucinations, figments of my traumatized imagination, taunted me as I considered the tall palm trees on the edge of the beach. I tripped over the coconut that would save my life. It took all of my strength to beat the coconut against a hard rock until I felt the milk running down my forearm. Dehydration almost had me, but I won. Constructing a shelter was my second trial. I propped tall rods of bamboo against a large rock and covered the ground with leaves. Rain leaked in during the first night, and a gust of wind knocked over most of my little shelter onto my curled-up form during the second night. On the third day, I explored the tiny island and found a shallow cave in the rocks. I moved in, covering the ground with palm fronds. I wove a large section of bamboo tightly together and in the evenings propped it against the opening to the cave. I began keeping a fresh bundle of West Indian jasmine near my head when I slept at night for the fragrance and the sweet nectar I could tongue from the base of each ruby flower. Before our boat sank and I found myself alone on the island, our mothers tried to teach us how to survive. They taught us things like building fires, desalinating water with plastic bottles, sharpening spears for fishing, and making splints for broken bones. They were learning at the same time from old books and, before leaving the mainland, anything they could find on the internet. Mama Ann showed us how the boat's engine worked, and Mama Yvette taught us how to tie different types of knots. Mama Yvette was patient with my little brother's impatience, pinching his cheeks and kissing the top of his head, but she was persistent. A half dozen more times, she instructed, smiling. The Palomar knot is important. How are you going to fish without this knot? Do it again. My little brother cried during our lesson on the merits of drinking turtle blood when a freshwater source was missing. Mama Ann said not to worry, that our chances of finding a sea turtle to drink were slim. The oceans were dying, and so were the turtles. A few nights after our lesson on turtles, the boat sank, and my mother's and little brother disappeared with it. Imagine that they are too dead. It took me an entire day to coax a fire into existence. My body ached with the effort of convincing the wood dust to smolder enough to light the kindling. When I finally succeeded, I celebrated by catching and sacrificing several large crabs, knocking them out with a rock and cooking them over the flames. When I pulled their bodies apart and stuffed my mouth full of smoky white flesh, I laughed in relief. The introduction to warmth and protein buoyed my spirits. The next morning, I took stock of what I had accomplished. I had my little cave, a little fire, and a little protein. I had plenty of coconuts. I had a torn white t-shirt, an old sports bra, and a pair of shorts. I remembered what Mama Ann had said during one of our lessons when we were still anchored to the mainland. Clothing becomes a tool. I took all my clothes off. Much of it would eventually become fishing line. I tore a scrap from the t-shirt and it became a wrap for my head, shielding it from the sun and pushing my bushy dark curls out of my face. I walked naked to the beach, my feet leaving watery prints on the wet sand. I considered the dark blue ocean before me, my eyes squinting in the sunlight. The waves rolled onto the shore and the cool water curled around my calves. I thought about our boat and my family and whether this water was carrying a part of their remains with it. It was difficult to believe that only months before, I had curled up in the small galley, squished on a bench with my mothers and my brother while we watched a movie on a laptop computer. We ate popcorn and drank iced tea, and we smelled like sunblock and shampoo and laundry detergent. We all sniffled and grew silent when Tom Hanks lost Wilson in the waves. When I first arrived on the island, sunburned and thirsty and lost, I had the privilege of panic and adrenaline to keep me distracted from thoughts of my family. Once I had sustenance, I busied myself learning how to catch small fish and smoke them over the fire. I woke up one morning from a nightmare, and to chase away the sound of my brother's voice, I spent the day studying the flora of the island, rubbing leaves and berries and seeds against the back of my hands to check for poison or allergies. One particularly difficult morning, I woke up clutching my chest, still hearing Mama Ann's voice screaming instructions as our boat swung wildly in a storm. I spent the day in a reckless manner, hunting and killing a large snake and awarding myself with my most impressive dinner yet. But several weeks after my arrival, I awoke with dried fish and seaweed waiting for me to eat, and hot coals still smoldering in the fire pit, and a hollowed-out coconut shell filled with fresh water I discovered flowing from a small stream on the other side of the island. I awoke with no plans, no huge crisis to handle, no puzzle to solve, and I awoke with my cheeks still wet with tears from nightmares that had stalked me in my sleep. I pushed aside the bamboo entrance to my little cave and sat up and understood. Loneliness is the very worst thing about surviving a shipwreck. Then Charles showed up. Thank you.